The worst quests in World of Warcraft, you know, the ones that made you rage quit, scream at your monitor, and question your life choices. Those quests were actually the reason WoW felt alive. But let's start somewhere else. You see, up until 2018, the only grass I cared about was the lush fields of Mulgore and Elven Forest. Why 2018 specifically? That's when Battle for Azeroth came out. And I slowly started losing my spark for what had been my virtual home for nearly half of my life at that point. It wasn't just a game, it was an escape. Once you logged in, you were no longer just some guy. Out here, I'm just a simple gamer, but in here, I am Falcorn, defender of the Alliance. Now, this is not a WoW is dead and MMOs are gone or dying video. I love WoW, but it's kind of like being in a toxic relationship. Everyone tells you to leave, and deep down you kind of know it's wrong and it's bad, but you keep telling yourself that it'll get better. You know, chasing the good times, the good days. Trauma bonding. Over the years, with every new expansion, I got more bitter. Nothing was ever good enough. The game had changed too much. When in reality, what had changed the most was me. And you. I wasn't 12 or 14 anymore. I started peeking over my monitor and realizing Elven Forest is kind of like right outside my window. We had real-life elven baddies dancing in real-life taverns. I guarantee you, the generation that grew up playing Fortnite will look back and say, Fortnite used to be so good. It's not the same anymore. But it's true, the game has changed. You are not the same. The magic of time. We humans are pessimistic by nature and self-destructive in a way. We rob ourselves of happiness by comparing present to past. Remember the early 2000s? The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, high fantasy, wizards and dragons had the world in a f***ing chokehold. You could slap a knight, a wizard and dragons on a poster and call it
Quest for Cultures,
something like that, and we'd lose our minds. Slap a pair of honkers on there and it's a done deal. Then boom! Blizzard drops World of Warcraft in 2004. The perfect storm. Warcraft fans, high fantasy hype, easier and more forgiving gameplay than EverQuest. It attracted everyone. Casuals, hardcore nerds, your dad, your dog. It wasn't just a game, it was a portal. You didn't log in, you stepped through. You picked a class and read flavor text like scripture and stepped into a living, breathing world. Every sound and every animation, every inch of Azeroth felt handcrafted. You weren't playing a game, you were becoming someone. So here you are, creating your first character. Select a cow person, going with the class warrior because that sounds familiar, and come up with the best name that you can. An epic cinematic intro gives you a TLDR on your race, your culture, and history, making sure you know who you are in this world. The camera then stabilizes, and for the first time, you are in control. Finally, you can take those first steps in this magical world that you've been hearing so much about. You grind your way through those first quests, trying to locate whatever the the quest givers have told you to find using their vague instructions and testing your knowledge of West and East.
I need you to find the windmill. You will find it where the squirrels lay their nuts. It's where the sun sets northeast, then more north, and east again. Farewell, young one.
After getting a better feel for your character as you fought, looted, and died your way through the starting area, you walk down this little path when suddenly before you, this large, beautiful plain landscape comes into view. At this point, you don't see the monitor anymore. With the heavenly ambience music in your ears and the stunning visuals, you have effectively been teleported into this world. You open your map to find undiscovered areas. You right-click and realize it's a whole continent. Then you click again and see it's a whole-ass world. If walking from the starting zone to Bloodhoof felt like it took a while, imagine traveling around this continent, this whole world. You could actually feel the scale of the world because everything took so much time. So as you enthusiastically travel and explore, you come across other players that look a lot more badass than you, and you see people zooming past you on mounts. Few people actually enjoy time-consuming grinds like these, but the desire for a specific thing such as better gear or a riding mount will always outweigh the tediousness of acquiring it. When you stepped into this world, running around auto-attacking mobs and popping health potions to not die, these hints of what is out there and what you may one day acquire yourself were so motivating, even though they felt very far away. The feeling of endless upgrades as you slowly but surely conquer the world was pure crack. It was immersive and it was new. And here's the thing, it was never that hard. PvE back then, honestly, it was just tedious. We didn't care. And this was a different time. We didn't have all the online resources and everything readily available. There was no min-maxing, no speedrunning. There was always a speedrunner, but you know, that wasn't the culture. It wasn't expected of you to be fast. All of this boils down to time. The slow grind and the long walks. Classic WoW had zero respect for your time. Absolutely none. And that was exactly the point. Remember those escort quests? Like that robot chicken. You move at a snail's pace, palms sweaty, knees weak, praying some random hyena wouldn't gank you and ruin your day. Or that a rogue pops up as you're closing in on gadgets and ends your 30-minute walk. But in that frustration, something magical happened. You looked around. You typed "hell" in the chat and maybe someone actually came. Suddenly, you weren't alone. Those bad quests weren't about the rewards. They're famous and infamous for their tediousness, but we remember them fondly as well because they were predictable yet unpredictable. The quest itself is always pretty straightforward, but the world is so alive that you never know what's next or what might appear. Chaos, not convenience. Chapter 4. Today, everything is about efficiency. We fly straight to quest markers. We watch TikToks or Reels or series on another monitor while auto-running to our next location. I've even got to the point where I will mount up on my flying mount, jump with dragon riding, and descend in what would realistically be 5 steps for my character to move. We crave the constant dopamine. But back then, distances mattered. Walking from Mulgore to Orgrimmar was easily a 30-minute walk. That is, if you didn't get ganked or distracted along the way. On the way, you discover hidden quest hubs. You get dragged into some dynamic PvP. Those long walks and bad quests forced you to slow down. Take the Green Hills of Stranglethorn. On paper, absolute nightmare. Pages everywhere. Bags exploding, gold vanishing, but it created this underground economy. You'd trade pages in chat, haggle like some shady street merchant. You became a hustler of sorts, the Jeff Bezos of Stranglethorn. Even basic fetch quests forced you to rely on others. You typed in chat and you formed groups and met future guildmates and future enemies. The world itself was the main character back in the day. The world was so alive. No matter where you went, everything was breathing. Let's imagine if the Stranglethorn questline had modern-day quest markers. You'd have finished it in 5 minutes and never thought about it again. But back then, you knew who had that page 14. You knew his name. You hated him. Maybe you loved him too. All these annoyances were actually the glue that held the social fabric of WoW together. They weren't designed for convenience. They were designed for chaos, surprise, and connection. Most long-time WoW players grew up in a non-brain rot world. Our dopamine receptors weren't completely fried back then. Long grinds felt rewarding. Now, TikTok and short content like that has absolutely fried my brain. I tremble if I have to watch a long video without something else playing in the background. I check TikTok walking to the fridge, taking a piss, or when the visual stimuli I'm watching while eating is interrupted by an ad. And the same thing kind of happened in WoW. Each expansion handed out gold and gear like it was Halloween candy. Sparkly quest item, flying mounts everywhere, instant teleporters. They don't want you stuck in old content. They want you blasting to max level and endgame as fast as possible, which is where all the content is. We also don't have endless time anymore. We want depth, but life changed. We traded wandering for knowing. We traded patience for power leveling. And now, we look around and wonder why it all feels hollow. And I know that this isn't some revolutionary, original thought I'm having or what the things I'm saying right now, but it's not the game that changed, even though the game has 100% changed. It's us and the world around us that has changed the most. Blizzard is trying to cater to how the new world works and how people are these days. This isn't 2004, 2007, where the internet is a place you go to. You hop on the family computer and you're connected to people from other parts of the world live. This was revolutionary in a way. It was new, it was exciting. Once you walked away from that family computer, you were offline. You would have to go to your friend's house and knock on his door if you wanted to do something. World of Warcraft will never be the same, but maybe it was never supposed to stay the same. Depending on who you ask, what is WoW's golden age or peak WoW? Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath, everyone has their own golden era. As talked about earlier with the Fortnite generation, for example. When we stop enjoying something that we used to enjoy and there's no obvious immediate reason as to why, we often pinpoint it to game design, game mechanics, graphics changes, additions that we don't like. But if you started playing that game the way it is now in the state that you apparently hate it for the first time at a younger age, you would probably love it. It's just that you've kind of tired of it, but yet you force yourself to play that shit. Your favorite expansion might be someone else's worst. Personally, I loved Mists of Pandaria. I won't be playing MoP Classic because I've been there, done that, why would I return? But for many other people, that was their final straw. Pandas, you know, what the fuck are pandas doing in my WoW? Somewhere in those differences is where all our stories lie. We blame the game, but in reality, we just had too much WoW, if that's possible. We grew up. We lost some of that original spark. Some of us still play, some of us moved on. But no matter where you are right now, that world is still and will always be a part of you. And if you ever find yourself logging in again, staring at a quest that makes you groan, maybe think twice before skipping it. Maybe it's not a waste of time. Maybe, just maybe, it's the whole point. One of the things I do love reading about are other people's fond WoW memories. And I know it sounds like I'm doing this to increase the engagement or whatever on the video, but honestly, this is something I'd really like. I've been searching it up for years, like best WoW stories online. And I love those, like, oh, it was me and my guildmate. We were waiting in Dust Willow Marsh. It was night. I was hungry. We were going for 10 hours. Like, I love those stories so much. So please just drop anything you can think of. I will read them. I will react, respond, and it will warm my heart. Goodbye.